Hello and welcome to the Family Law Software Getting Started webinar for Connecticut. My name is Barbara Stark and I'm going to spend a few minutes with you giving you an overview of the program and then pointing out some tips to help you learn the program and a couple of the features that are unique to Connecticut. Family Law, I am in the desktop version of the program. Family Law Software also comes in a cloud version. For the purposes of the webinar, what I'm showing you today is all going to be the same thing, but I am on the desktop version. Family Law Software has 4 tabs across the top. The first tab is called Files and Settings. I call it the Administrative tab. This is the area where you open files and delete files and otherwise administer your program. Files and Settings. The next tab is called Client Information. I call this tab the Database because this is the place where you enter and edit data. And all of the data that you put into this section populates the remaining parts of the program. So that's client information. The next tab is called Negotiate. I call this tab the Attorney section because this is where the real power of the program comes. This is where you can use our many calculators to analyze and negotiate child support and alimony. And in the property section, you can use our division of property calculators and spreadsheets without having to use Excel, and also avoiding double entries because these functions are populated by the asset data entries that you made in the affidavit section. So that's the Negotiate tab. The final tab is the Reports tab. There are 2 sections here. The first tab is the Forms section, which are the official Connecticut forms. The second section is all kinds of other really good reports that allow you to look at the data in an unofficial format that sometimes is much better as you're working through a case. So those are the 4 tabs. Then we have the print and PDF button. In the cloud, there's only a PDF button because you do everything with your output reports via PDF, including printing. So let's go back to the Files and Settings section and let me mention a few things for you. The first is that in Family Law Software, throughout client information, and in this screen, as we can see, there are arrows that you can push and open a section. I recommend, particularly in the client information section, that you keep your arrows closed, open up a section when you're working on it, and then close that section when you're done. You're going to find this particularly helpful when you have a long list of assets or a long list of income or many choices on child support, and if you close these sections, it'll make it much easier to edit the data. What I wanted to show you here, and I'm going to open up this section, is some tips on learning the program using this screen as an example. On almost all the screens, there is a how-to video, and I recommend that you start there if you're approaching a new screen. The next thing you should do is read the Help on this screen section, and then you should read the screen. You would be amazed how many answers are sitting right in front of you if you do read the screen. But if you've done all that and you still have a question, you can see blue question marks and they're sprinkled throughout the program. When you click on the blue question mark, it gives you information about where you're located. And if that isn't enough information, there's a more help button here and it gives you even more information. So it's a great way to work your way through the screens and learn them. Just two comments on this screen. This is where you start a new file. I clicked it. That's where you would put the data in and start a new file. And it says start a new client file. So that's how you know that's what you're supposed to do. But up here, it says new client. And this is different. This is the screen that you're going to use for client data entry, and my computer is giving me a hard time here in the middle of the webinar, which is a real bummer for that to happen. Let me get out of here and see if I can cure this problem. I don't know why that happened. It was something to do with my computer. But anyway, here we are, client electronic data entry. At the beginning of the case, clients can enter the data on their own computer, and then you just pull that data into your computer, and it allows you to then start editing and not spend a lot of office time being data entry operators. I highly recommend that you fill in your own name and your personal email address and actually experience your process for yourself, so that when you explain it to clients and give them guidance, you will have experienced it yourself. The other thing that I just want to say about this screen is we rarely use the Save As button because in Family Law Software, there is only one file per client, and that file grows as the case continues. If you want to save a record of reports that you've given to your client, the court, another attorney, you can scan them, of course, but you can also use the PDF button to point them to your secure storage location where you're keeping all of your client documents. The reason we don't use the Save As button is that in this Negotiate tab, there are a lot of different things you can do, changing income, changing asset values, and when you do that, it doesn't mess up the financial affidavit, so you really don't have to worry about using the Save As button. Occasionally you would use it, but the purpose is to have one file per client so that you always know the latest data is in that file and you're not confused with multiple files for a particular client. The settings section, you should go to this professional information and report options section and fill in the information here. That will help the way in which your reports are being printed out. The Update Software button is just for the desktop. We send you a notice if we make a major change, but we do sometimes make minor changes, and so it's probably a good idea to check periodically or to update the program once a month and make sure you have the latest and greatest going on there. If you have the cloud version, then there is no Update Software button because the cloud is always the latest version of the program. And finally, in this section is the help area. We have a very long list of frequently asked questions on our website, so you should check those out. And there are Connecticut-specific FAQs there that you're going to want to read. But after all that, if you still are having a question, you should email us by pushing this button, or better yet, strip the file and send it to us. It is often a little bit difficult for us to be able to answer questions for you when we don't actually have the file and can see what it is that you've done in the program. So sending us the file is a very helpful step to take. So moving on to the client information button. Well, New York is not going to be that helpful to you, so let's change it to Connecticut. So this is where I changed the state. So there's Connecticut. There you go. All right, so moving on to client information. there are two sections here, one for the affidavit and one for child support. These two sections talk to each other, meaning that if you put data into child support, and here she makes $2,000 a month, you can see the child support amount at the bottom. What that means is that on her affidavit, her income is listed also at $2,000 a month, because these two sections talk to each other. So in learning the program, you ought to kind of decide which function do you want to learn first. Um, if you decide to learn the affidavit first, then child support, a lot of the data will already be there. Let's take a quick look at the child support screen just to mention a couple of things. I'll remind you about the video, the help, and the blue question marks. But the way to learn this is to simply take a section at a time, read the screen, read the blue question marks, and you will be able to calculate the amount of support. When you're done entering all of this data, you go to reports, and that's where the child support guideline resides. Now, as long as I'm on the face of the child support guideline, let me mention something else, and this applies to the financial affidavit as well as the child support guideline. You can see these numbers are in blue, and the rule in family law software is that you never change a number in a blue field. Now, there are some exceptions to every rule, but they're rare. The reason for that rule is that these blue fields are the results of formulas. So if you overwrite these numbers, what you're going to do is mess up the formulas and the functioning of the program all throughout these tabs. So if I want to change Betty's income, I go back to the database, and when I change her income, the child support will automatically change at the bottom. I change her income, the child support has changed, and you can see, well, it's a weekly number here because it's done on a weekly basis, but that is the new number. So that is the Connecticut child support screen. With regard to the affidavit, you would just work your way through. Background and child, you'll notice there's a video and blue question marks everywhere. Income and expenses, there's a bunch of menus along here. And for expenses, we can enter things weekly, monthly, or annually. And if we do that, I have an extra large cursor here, so sometimes it's a little hard for me to do it. All the math happens automatically, and you have throughout the program unlimited footnoting capability, which is a really nice feature to have. Assets and liabilities, those are pretty straightforward. They have all the sections. You open up a section and you can add as many different assets and liabilities as you want. So this is all very straightforward in terms of data entry. I do, however, want to mention and draw your attention to this section called Form Information. This is the section that I say it's the part that makes your affidavit beautiful, because you can put in all the information that you need. And you can watch the video and read the question marks and all that. But what I want you to really pay attention to in this program in Connecticut is that we have two forms of the affidavit. We have the official format and we have the expanded format. We recommend, and I think when you see the differences, you will clearly know why, that you use the expanded format in every case. And this is just a little demonstration of why. I am currently in the official format. So if I go to reports and go to the financial affidavit, looks a little different when I print it, but you can see these two columns here. I'm sorry to make you dizzy going down to expenses. And you can see the two columns that they have, and then for reasons that we don't understand. They have one column. So here is the income and expense section. We provide much more detail on income and expenses than the official affidavit will print. And as a result, we create for you an appendix. Well, that's all very nice, the appendix with the official format, except for the fact that you have to flip back and forth between the page with the expense and the appendix that explains the expense. It's not a happy situation, and it's very reminiscent of what we had to do on the prior Connecticut affidavit. So in order to cure that situation, we have created an expanded format which is readable and gets rid of all that page flipping. So what you do is you change it to expanded format, and it creates in the income and expense section one column, which is very nicely printed. And I'll show you the expenses again. I'm going to make you dizzy. You see how it's just one column of expenses, and it provides all of our breakout, and every single entry can have its own footnote like I have for food for children. So this is a far, far preferable financial affidavit to the official format. Now it's got all the official words in it, and you're not going to have any problem with it being accepted. As a matter of fact, people who are reading it are going to be happy to get it that way because it is such an improvement over the official format. Now the Negotiate tab is an important tab, as I said earlier, because this is the section that allows lawyers to negotiate support in the income section and property in the property division section. You just need to work your way through these screens, watch the video, and see what is there for you. I'll just highlight a couple of things. The most important screen to start with is income summary. We often call these reports FinPlan reports in Connecticut because we used to do them under a prior software called FinPlan. And this is where you learn how to read them and create a standalone after-tax cash flow report. We call them expanded reports. So you would start your learning here, but then you can move on to other calculators. I'll show you the three I particularly like. Guideline what if, you can create multiple scenarios, change facts, and automatically see the formula child support amount. Alimony needed, which provides 4 different calculators for trying to figure out what the right amount of alimony and child support would be. And the what if analysis, which is a very powerful calculator that allows you to change, deviate from the guideline, add alimony, look at after-tax cash flow, move the dependency exemptions back and forth. You can do many, many wonderful things with the what if analysis screen. So those are the 3 main screens that I would encourage you to turn to. In the property area, this is the Division of Marital Property screen, which allows us to set a target for the division of property, like 40% to John. And then I can move the assets between the parties by percentage or by amount. So it's a very easy way to move things around, and it keeps an eye on the target until I come up with something that I like. And then when I come up with something that I like, I can go to the bottom here and hit Division of Marital Property and have a beautiful report that you can explore. We do many other formats for property spreadsheets. This is just one of them that I'm showing you here. And then there are other property division calculators that you will want to explore. So finally, we have the report section, and we've already looked at the guideline and the financial affidavit here. In the report section, there are 2 functions here that I want to stress for you. The first, and this is particularly important in Connecticut, is the View Edit Tax Report. Even if you are not doing after-tax cash flow reports, in Connecticut, child support is done on an after-tax basis. And if you don't calculate the taxes correctly, your child support number is wrong. And as a result, I recommend that every child support guideline have attached to it this report, because this report, and you need to review it to make sure it's accurate, has your human being data entries on it: your filing status, assignment of exemptions, income, adjustments, and itemized deductions if you itemize them. So very often when people have different child support amounts in Connecticut, it traces all the way back to the View Edit Tax Report because of the failure to calculate the taxes correctly. The Connecticut Child Support Guideline requires that you do this tax calculation, and we do it automatically for you, but you need to not make a clerical mistake when you put the data into the program. So that's one important report. The other wonderful section that you need to explore a lot is called the budget report. Now, this report does have their budget in here. You can see living expenses, but it does many other things. You can put the income in, you can put the child support in, the alimony, you can put the taxes in, you can take things out. You have many choices of how to format and display this data, and you will find that you will become quite reliant on this budget report in terms of explaining the data to your clients, the other attorney, or judges as you're working through your case. Well, that's the end of our little tour of Family Law Software. So I think you're ready to find some time and sit down and start your learning process. Remember the help section here, and you're more than welcome to reach out to me. My email address is barbara.stark@familylawsoftware.com. Thank you so much for watching this webinar, and I'll look forward to perhaps talking to you soon.